Welcome back to Panda Audiobooks. Jian Wushuang has achieved the impossible. He is the undisputed champion of the regional competition. In our last episode, Wushuang claimed the ultimate prize and exposed the conspiracy, signaling the end of his time in this domain. Today, Wushuang ascends. Chapters 66 through 70 cover the crucial aftermath of his victory. Wushuang officially receives his phenomenal prize, secures the resources he needs, and deals with the inevitable political fallout, including approaches from major powers and jealous forces. He sets his sights on a truly vast world, perhaps a higher continent, a massive kingdom, or a transcendent sect that holds the key to his family's mystery. This episode is about securing his foundation and preparing for the true climb toward the heavens. The regional champion prepares for the next phase of destiny. Chapter 66 begins right away. Chapter 66, Secret Land of Heaven and Earth. After drinks, Wang Yuan was hanging out with Jian Wushuang and Xianxia. You two have just arrived at Dragon Palace. Let me show you around. I'll take you to the treasure troves of Dragon Palace, Wang Yuan said. All right. Jian Wushuang and Xianxia nodded. Dragon Palace covered a large area and was famous for 3 treasure troves: 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind, secret land of heaven and earth, and secret pavilion. The first place Wang Yuan brought them to was 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind. Look, this is 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind. Wang Yuan pointed to the 4 pavilions which covered a wide area. Each pavilion had a gilded character engraved on the lintel: earth, fire, water, and wind respectively. The 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind are where the disciples of Dragon Palace visit the most. Earth, fire, water, and wind represent the 4 kinds of essence realm of heaven and earth, which are Earth Essence Realm, Raging Fire Realm, Water Drop Essence Realm, and Gale Essence Realm. There are 6 temple masters in each temple. They're the top experts in the world and have reached the highest level of comprehending Essence Realm of heaven and earth. The reason why disciples of Dragon Palace often visit 4 temples is that the temple masters usually give lessons in the temples, displaying some martial arts techniques and giving disciples some advice. If you have any problem in comprehending Essence Realm of heaven and earth, you can consult these temple masters. After receiving their guidance, you might be enlightened. On hearing this, Jian Wushuang's and Xianxia's eyes lit up. If I have any problem in comprehending Essence Realm, I can consult these temple masters. What's more, there are 6 temple masters dealing with each essence realm. The 6 temple masters in each temple should be good at different aspects. It would be superior to following a top expert. Although a top expert would try his best to teach someone, he was alone and studied only one aspect. If he encountered unfamiliar fields, he would not know how to instruct them. In Dragon Palace, 4 temples covered 4 kinds of essence realms of heaven and earth. Each temple had 6 powerful temple masters, who studied various fields. Therefore, the disciples did not worry that they would encounter an unsolvable problem. Now we come to the secret land of heaven and earth. Wang Yuan led the way. Then they stood in front of a majestic palace. 2 golden-armored sergeants kept guard at the palace entrance. Wang Yuan said, "Secret land of heaven and earth is special and helpful at comprehending the essence realm of heaven and earth. If you want to enter secret land of heaven and earth, you need to pay 1,000 points to access the palace, and you can only stay inside for 2 hours each time. Though it is only 2 hours, I'm sure you'll benefit greatly from each visit. Moreover, you're newcomers in Dragon Palace, so each of you can enter the palace for free 3 times. Oh! Jian Wushuang said, raising his eyebrows. He had just been surprised at the 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind. The secret land of heaven and earth was as famous as the 4 temples. Jian Wushuang was somewhat curious about it, as the palace, with the harsh requirements to access it, must be extraordinary. How about it? Do you want to have a try? Wang Yuan smiled mysteriously. Sure. Jian Wushuang gave a little smile and then glanced at Xianxia. Second elder brother, you go first. Xianxia nodded and directly walked toward the palace. The 2 golden-armored sergeants stepped forwards, but immediately allowed Xianxia to enter secret land of heaven and earth. 2 hours later, Yang Zixuan came out of it with a blank look. Second elder brother. Jian Wushuang frowned. Don't disturb him. He's in the state of comprehension. Wang Yuan was not surprised at all and spoke to Jian Wushuang. Third younger brother, it's your turn. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, and then he stepped towards the secret land of heaven and earth. The two golden-armored sergeants walked forward again, and let Jian Wushuang enter after realizing that he was a newcomer. What on earth is stored in the secret land of heaven and earth? Jian Wushuang stepped into the secret land of heaven and earth with a flicker of curiosity. As soon as he entered, Jian Wushuang immediately felt himself surrounded by darkness. There was only a glimmer of light ahead in the endless darkness. Jian Wushuang could not help but look at the light. He was totally absorbed in it. The glimmer of light suddenly changed into a sword, which contained sword essence of gale, earth sword essence of raging fire, and sword essence of the water drop. He knew the 4 kinds of sword essence were unfathomable, although he had not comprehended the last 2. Jian Wushuang drew out triple kill sword behind him, the sword light starting to move. One after another, the ethereal sword light moved flexibly. Jian Wushuang then started to perform the anonymous swordsmanship. He easily showed the first move of anonymous swordsmanship, Blood Shadow. He did not encounter any problem either in performing the second move of anonymous swordsmanship, sword killing movement. The third move of anonymous swordsmanship, named Expeditious Maneuver, was a terrifying killing move, emphasizing absolute speed. Jian Wushuang had not comprehended this move. He thought it was because his speed at unleashing the sword was not fast enough. In fact, it was related to his inferior comprehension of sword essence of gale. However, Jian Wushuang could not help wielding his long sword and slowly performed this move in this special situation. Hoo! The sword light flashed and then disappeared with the wind. He naturally performed the third move of anonymous swordsmanship, Expeditious Maneuver. Nevertheless, it was not over. As Jian Wushuang continued to wield long sword, the sword light became grander and more massive. Every beam of the sword light contained sword essence of earth. One strike after another. Suddenly, the glimmer of light disappeared. Jian Wushuang was slightly surprised and blankly stared into space. 2 hours, I've run out of time. Jian Wushuang looked into the darkness, sighing. Then he turned to leave. Jian Wushuang walked out of secret land of heaven and earth and saw his 3 sworn brothers waiting outside, but he ignored them and directly sat on the ground, with eyes closed. Wang Yuan, Yang Zixuan, and Su Ru were not angry at Jian Wushuang. They knew Jian Wushuang's state and did not want to disturb him. After a while, Jian Wushuang finally breathed a sigh of relief and immediately stood up. How about it? Wang Yuan asked with a smile. Good, very good. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. The benefits from practicing in secret land of heaven and earth for 2 hours can be comparable to that from earnest cultivation in a month. Chapter 67. The Secret Pavilion. What Jian Wushuang said was the truth. He had merely spent 2 hours inside the secret land of heaven and earth but made great progress in his understanding of the sword essence. My sword essence of earth and gale have both made huge progress in the third form of formless swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang was pleasantly surprised that those 2 hours were equivalent to his 1 month's worth of hard work, or more. Same here. I made great progress, too, Yang Zixuan said seriously. Ha ha. This is one of the 3 treasures of the Dragon Palace. The cost of entering it so high, naturally there's a high return too. You can enter the place 3 times. Since you've entered once, you must treasure your 2 remaining chances, Wang Yuan said, smiling. Come with me. I'll show you the last treasure of the Dragon Palace. They followed Wang Yuan to the entrance of a heavily guarded tall attic that exuded a faintly ancient scent. This attic is the most important of the 3 treasures of Dragon Palace, the secret pavilion. There are countless treasures in the secret pavilion, but you can only take them in exchange for points. Go in and have a look, Qianbao said. Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan immediately entered the secret pavilion. Inside the large and spacious secret pavilion, the treasures were divided into many categories. There were cultivation methods, martial arts techniques, elixir pills, and exotic classes. With a heavenly creation skill that defied the natural order, Jian Wushuang had no need for cultivation methods. Neither did he need elixirs and exotic classes for now, so he made a beeline for the martial arts technique section. The martial arts technique section was divided into swordsmanship, knife methods, spear methods, and so on. Jian Wushuang left Xianxia's side and headed straight for the swordsmanship section. The section stored nearly thousands of rare books on swordsmanship. Fortunately for Jian Wushuang, there was a list that he could refer to. Otherwise, he might need to flip through each book to find the one on his swordsmanship. The list detailed a number of swordsmanship, a basic introduction for each swordsmanship, as well as the points needed for exchange. But just from a quick glance, Jian Wushuang realized the lowest ranked swordsmanship on this list was already top-notch ones. There was also no shortage of sword skills. Sword skills were beyond the scope of so-called swordsmanship. Generally, one needed to use sword skills with a display of sword essence understanding at the same time. Formless swordsmanship. The first item he looked for was the formless swordsmanship. He found out from Yi Rufeng that the formless swordsmanship was none other than the anonymous swordsmanship. The formless swordsmanship had 9 sword movements, and what he had been cultivating was merely the simplest first 3 of the swordsmanship. Found it. Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened when he found the formless swordsmanship on the list. Formless swordsmanship, the sword skill acknowledged by the Qianzong dynasty as world's #1. It was suitable for warriors who understood the sword essence of Gale. There were 9 movements, and each was stronger than the one before it. Exchange for the first 3 movements with 200 points. Exchange for the middle 3 movements with 2,000 points. The last 3 movements are unavailable. So it's true they only have the middle 3 movements, not the last 3. Jian Wushuang shook his head. He had heard this from Yi Rufeng on their way here. Though there were 9 sword strokes of the formless swordsmanship, the most powerful latter 3 were long lost to history. The Dragon Palace might be the cultivation sanctuary of the Qianzong dynasty, but not even they could recover sword movements in a swordsmanship that had been lost. I'll need to spend 2,000 points alone just for the middle 3 movements. Jian Wushuang frowned secretly, for his current score was precisely that number. There's no hurry. Let's look at other sword skills. Jian Wushuang was not anxious to make his decision yet. He started reading the category of swordsmanship for Sword Essence of Earth Understanding. His comprehension of Sword Essence of Earth was, in fact, far higher than Sword Essence of Gale. It was a pity that he did not have any suitable sword skill to display it all this while. Even in the mansion of Sword Marquis, the first-class swordsmanship he learned leaned toward the Earth Essence. But that was not even a first-class swordsmanship, let alone a super first-class swordsmanship. It was too weak that he could not even show the might of his Sword Essence of Earth to its fullest. Therefore, his immediate priority was finding a suitable sword skill in the Sword Essence of Earth. There were many sword skills on the list that were suitable for his goals. He finally selected 3 after carefully pondering over each one. They were Mark of Earth, Immemorial Sword Skill, and Formless Sword Wave. Mark of Earth required 2,500 points, while Immemorial Sword Skill required 3,000 points. Formless Sword Wave was divided into 2 sections, with each being 2,500 points. Though each of these sword tactics has its own advantages, I think the Formless Sword Ripple seems superior. It also suits me better, but the exchange rate is higher. Jian Wushuang frowned. The 2 sections would cost him 5,000 points. At the moment, he only had 2,000 points. Whatever. Since I don't have enough points for the other 2 sword skills now, I'll just not exchange for now. I'll just wait and find a way to get more points. It wouldn't be too late by then. He then left the swordsmanship section and began taking a stroll through the elixir pills and exotic classes section. There were all kinds of odd treasures and elixirs here, many of which were hard to find in the outside world. In the secret pavilion, one only needed points to get them. Before long, Jian Wushuang left the secret pavilion with Xianxia. But before he left, Xianxia spent 4,000 points to exchange for a martial arts technique. Jian Wushuang could only shrug his shoulders helplessly. There was nothing he could about it. Xianxia had more points than him after all. When he came out of the sword pavilion, Wang Yuan came up to him. What do you think about the treasures in the secret pavilion? There are many of them, Jian Wushuang said. I've once visited the storehouse of a great power, but it's nothing compared to this place, Xianxia added. Ha ha. Of course. This is the secret pavilion of the Dragon Palace. How can those so-called sects of the Qianzong dynasty compare to? As the disciples of this place, we can redeem the treasures if we have enough points. Wang Yuan smiled. Boss Wang Yuan, how can we get these points? Jian Wushuang asked. There are many ways. I'll tell you one by one, Wang Yuan replied, immediately describing each method. First method, go through the Dragon Gate Pass. There are 13 stories in the Dragon Gate. Starting at the 3rd level, you can get 1,000 points for passing through each level. After the 9th floor, you get 2,000 points each. I heard you mention that one of you passed the 8th floor and the other the 4th. Old 2, you earned 5,000 points. Old 3, you earned 1,000 points. But every newcomer also get 1,000 points for free, so you have 6,000 and 2,000 points respectively. Chapter 68. Battle for Points. The second way is to complete a task. Dragon Palace provides various tasks for experience. Some of them are difficult, some are relatively simple. You will obtain points according to the complexity of the task. The third way is to battle for points. On hearing this, both Jian Wushuang and Xianxia were puzzled. They could easily understand the first two ways, but could not figure out what the battle for points was. The battle for points is actually dueling. Wang Yuan spoke with a smile. There are more than 200 disciples of Dragon Palace with varying strength. As exceptional geniuses, they can be somewhat arrogant. As a result, they often fight with each other in Dragon Palace. Since there are fights, there are duels and bets. As for the bets, it's up to the two duelers. Got it. Jian Wushuang and Xianxia immediately understood. Speaking of the battles for points, third younger brother, you should be careful. Wang Yuan suddenly spoke. Why? Jian Wushuang looked at him in surprise. Wang Yuan said, I just mentioned there are 3 ways to get points. First, going through the Dragon Gate. Many disciples will wait a long time to challenge, and they may not be successful. What's more, they can only gain a few points there. Second, complete tasks for experience. But, only difficult tasks offer a lot of points. Disciples of Dragon Palace will face death trials while performing these tasks, so it's very dangerous. Only the third way, battle for points, is simple. You only need to challenge someone weaker than you and settle the bets. Disciples who have stayed in Dragon Palace for a period of time know the other disciples very well, so they won't easily accept challenges. However, you and second younger brother are different because you're newcomers. Jian Wushuang understood. You mean the other disciples of Dragon Palace will want to challenge me? Jian Wushuang asked. Right. Wang Yuan nodded. They are inclined to bully those weaker than them. You have just entered Dragon Palace, so they will treat you as a weakling. They will try their best to challenge you to a duel before you have time to use treasures of Dragon Palace to improve your strength. Of course, second younger brother is also a newcomer, but he made it through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. He's so powerful that no one will dare to challenge him. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. We'll reach the martial arts practice field soon, where many disciples of Dragon Palace gather. Battle for points is usually held there. Third younger brother, you must remember my words. If someone challenges you, you can refuse directly or just ignore them. They cannot do anything to you. Wang Yuan reminded Jian Wushuang. Refuse? Why should I refuse? Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Don't be rash, third younger brother. It is not easy for you to earn points. Do not lose them by acting on impulse. Wang Yuan continued to persuade him. Don't worry. I know what to do, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. The 4 of them had finally arrived at the huge martial arts practice field. The martial arts practice field covered an extremely large area. There were quite a few disciples of Dragon Palace around the center of it. At the moment, all of them looked at the 4 people who just stepped inside. Ha, Newcomers. I hear there are 2 new disciples. Those 2 must be the newcomers. The man with a cold expression is called Jian Wushuang. It's inconceivable that he has already gone through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. He must be a monster on the same level as Bai Cheng. Jian Wushuang, an exceptional genius. We're not comparable to him. The other person was called Swordsman. I hear he only made it through the 4th level. The 4th level means that his strength is at the bottom of Dragon Palace. Going through the 4th level is worth 1,000 points. And since he's a newcomer, he also received 1,000 points for free. In other words, he has 2,000 points now. Jian Wushuang should have attracted more attention, because of his brilliant results. Nevertheless, none of the disciples of Dragon Palace looked at him. All eyes were fixed on Jian Wushuang. Their eyes were full of expectation. It looks like I'm popular. Jian Wushuang noticed that their eyes sparkled with eagerness, the corner of his mouth lifted up. Ha ha, you are Swordsman, right? A laughter could be heard along with the question. Then a red-haired young man with a saber on his back appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. The aura of spiritual power in the exceptional spiritual sea realm spread out. He said, with an expectant look, I'm Zhong Dao. I hear you have gone through the 4th level of the Dragon Gate. So have I. Do you have the guts to have a fair fight with me? Looking at Zhong Dao, Jian Wushuang was delighted in his heart. The other disciples of Dragon Palace were furious. Damn it! He got there first. Zhong Dao is really fast. I hope the newcomer does not accept his challenge. Zhong Dao. Wang Yuan frowned and shouted in a low voice. It's been a year since you went through the 4th level. Now your strength has improved greatly to the point that you can challenge the 5th level. Aren't you embarrassed to talk about having a fair fight with my brother? Third younger brother, leave him alone, said Wang Yuan, winking at Jian Wushuang. What? Are you afraid of fighting with me? If you became a disciple of Dragon Palace, you must be a genius. Don't you have the guts? Zhong Dao spoke directly, then laughed out. Zhong Dao, right? Jian Wushuang raised his head and stared at Zhong Dao with a faint smile. You don't need to provoke me. I accept your challenge. Tell me how many points you want to bet. Cool. Zhong Dao was glad that Jian Wushuang accepted his challenge. I know you should have 2,000 points. I will not bet for all of them, just 1,500 points. That will leave you with 500 points to choose a manual from the General Hall in Secret Pavilion. What do you think? 1,500 points? Zhong Dao, you have a huge appetite. Wang Yuan spoke angrily. It's true. He has a total of 2,000 points. Only, you want 1,500 points. Isn't that too much? A disciple of Dragon Palace spoke up from the side. He also coveted Jian Wushuang's 2,000 points. 1,500 points. It's too much indeed. Well, I can bet 1,000 points, Jian Wushuang said. Okay, 1,000 points. Zhong Dao agreed without hesitation, secretly delighted. Zhong Dao thought that Jian Wushuang was not his match. Jian Wushuang had just become a disciple of Dragon Palace and had only made it through the 4th level of the Dragon Gate. Zhong Dao went through the 4th level a year ago. Since then, his strength had improved greatly with the help of the resources from Dragon Palace. Therefore, he thought he would win this fight no matter what would happen. He was over the moon when thinking about the 1,000 points. It was not a small amount for him, as it was hard to gain points in Dragon Palace. Ha ha, watch out. Zhong Dao spoke. He directly rushed forward. With a single stride, he appeared before Jian Wushuang and drew the saber on his back. Chapter 69, The First Win. Swish! With one chop, the air was immediately cut. So fast. Jian Wushuang was stunned, and he thought to himself, they are undoubtedly Dragon Palace disciples. Jian Wushuang was very calm. The movement was swift, but his sword was faster. Swish! A dazzling glare of sword light fleeted. It was still the first blood shadow move of formless swordsmanship. A clashing sound could be heard when the two swords met. There was only a slight gap between these two powers. "You will be defeated," Zhong Dao said in a low voice. "Ridiculous," Jian Wushuang replied with a laugh. These two people began to display their power to its furthest extent. One used the knife, and the other the sword. Their splendid speed reached its peak. Clang! 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 Numerous clashing sounds could be heard. The blade lights and sword shadows were extremely rapid. Both Jian Wushuang and Zhong Dao sensed sword principle of Gale, and it was very powerful. Zhong Dao had achieved the 4th level a year ago. Although it was not certain that he would achieve the 5th level, he had been able to fight with the level keepers in the 5th level for a long time. Jian Wushuang did not have a deep comprehension of Gale sword principle, and he was not as powerful as Zhong Dao. But he had obtained a better understanding of sword principle of Gale during the 2-hour cultivation in the secret land of heaven and earth. Thus he was no weaker than Zhong Dao now. The sword light moved and disappeared with the wind. The third move of formless swordsmanship, expeditious maneuver. It's formless swordsmanship, and it's the third move. Is this expeditious swordsmanship? Unbelievable! The surrounding Dragon Palace disciples were amazed. These disciples were familiar with the first sword skill of Qianzhong dynasty, and several of them had cultivated the formless swordsmanship. All of them understood the high requirement of practicing this move. Formless swordsmanship? So what? Zhong Dao roared. The saber in his hand split straight down with a bloody light flickering. It burst out in the blink of an eye. The scarlet light of the saber hit the sword light. The sword essence changed suddenly as Jian Wushuang twisted his wrist. It started as the sword essence of Gale, and suddenly became the heavy sword essence of Earth. What? Zhong Dao looked pale. Sword essence of Earth. The Dragon Palace disciples were shocked. It was very difficult to comprehend the essence realm of heaven and earth, and someone comprehending two types at the same time, not to mention both at a high level, was rarely seen. Very few disciples in Dragon Palace could comprehend two types of the realm at the same time. The swordsmanship Jian Wushuang exhibited was obviously the sword essence of Earth. Sword essence of Gale converted perfectly to sword essence of Earth. Sword edge swept Zhong Dao's sleeves, and rolled up his robe. Zhong was defeated in this battle. Lose. Has Zhong Dao lost? The entire martial arts practice field went quiet. The Dragon Palace disciples were shocked. Some held contempt for Zhong Dao. Wang Yuan was amazed too. No one had expected this. A newcomer like Jian Wushuang could beat Zhong Dao. Only Jian Wushuang, himself, thought this was very normal. Relying on the perfectly converted sword essence of Gale and sword essence of Earth, I have fought for a long time at the 5th level. When I went through the Dragon Gate Pass, I improved my cultivation of these two sword essences after just 1 hour of learning secret land of heaven and earth. Now I'm confident I'll pass the 5th level. Zhong Dao, on the other hand, still has a way to go before reaching the 5th level. It is natural that I should beat him. I even didn't do my best. Jian Wushuang laughed at heart. True, he had not done his best. If he had, it would not have taken so long to beat Zhong Dao. Of course, he had his reasons for not doing his best from the beginning. Zhong Dao had a gloomy look on his face. He was in agony. He had lost indeed, and with so many people watching. He could not change it. He transferred 1,000 points to Jian Wushuang immediately. When he saw that his pledge number had reached 3,000, Jian Wushuang smiled and looked around. Is there anyone who wants to fight with me? He called out in a loud voice. Me. An ice-cold girl stepped forward. Although Jian Wushuang beating Zhong Dao was beyond the expectations of many people, it did not count for anything. After all, Zhong Dao had only broken through to the 4th level, and he was not the top among those who were at this level. A duel is still 1,000 points. Jian Wushuang said. Good. The girl did not hesitate. She shot at him directly. Swish. A fierce blade slashed straight out. The blade's extreme speed caused a glimmer of heat. Ha ha, come on. Jian Wushuang laughed loudly. He moved his sword in a counterattack stance. The girl had a high cultivation of blade essence of raging fire. She was close to the 5th level and even stronger than Zhong Dao. As she fought with Jian Wushuang, she soon discovered that Jian Wushuang not only had a strong ability using sword essence of gale, but also the sword essence of earth. Sometimes these two swordsmanships were very fast and smart, sometimes they were heavy as a mountain pressing overwhelmingly. Two great changes of the sword essence quickly suppressed her. The fight did not last long. This fight caused many disciples of Dragon Palace to sigh. If her cultivation of the blade essence of raging fire were higher, she would not have been suppressed, and she would have had a better chance of winning. Yeah, he was just a little stronger than her. Jian Wushuang was just slightly stronger than the girl, everyone could see it. Hence, the third challenger was ready to challenge. This challenger was much more powerful than the ice-cold girl. Everyone was expecting Jian Wushuang to be defeated in this fight. But the result was shocking. A narrow victory. The fight with the third challenger had lasted for nearly an hour. Jian Wushuang had finally obtained an extremely narrow victory. 3 consecutive fights had all been won. Jian Wushuang's points went from 2,000 to 5,000. The Dragon Palace disciples' expressions become a bit weird. They were not stupid. It was rather coincidental to win 3 fights in succession with such a trivial difference. Chapter 70. Do not reject anyone. He was victorious in all 3 battles, and all of them were narrow victories. What a lucky guy. This swordsman. Is he hiding his strength? Impossible. After all, he is just a newcomer. Those disciples of Dragon Palace knew that Jian Wushuang was only a newcomer who had passed the 4th level of Dragon Gate, therefore his strength should be very limited. However, they were very suspicious of him after he won these 3 consecutive battles, beating his opponents. A burly man came out among the crowd looking extremely domineering, wielding a thick broadsword. Lin Feng. Lin Feng came out. Disciples of Dragon Palace all looked at this burly man. Lin Feng, you have gone through the 5th level. Aren't you ashamed of challenging a newcomer? Wang Yuan fumed with a dark face. Although Jian Wushuang had defeated 3 challengers who were at the 4th level of the Dragon Gate, this burly man, Lin Feng, had passed the 5th level already. You are a swordsman. You should also have the strength to break through the 5th level. Why can't I challenge him? Lin Feng replied indifferently, and his eyes looked to Jian Wushuang. Of course you can. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. To duel, it is still 1,000 points. Okay. Lin Feng nodded. Be careful. Whoosh. Lin Feng crossed 10 meters instantly and appeared before Jian Wushuang. He swung his thick broadsword ferociously. A water drop essence erupted. All of a sudden Jian Wushuang felt like he had been plunged into a boundless sea, with crashing waves. He was a lonely boat in the sea, at risk of capsizing any time. Water drop essence. Jian Wushuang frowned, immediately berated in a low voice, I'll break it down. A strong sword light pierced out at an alarming rate, tearing down everything with its speed. The thick broadsword brought stacked waves, covering everything. The sword light pierced several ripples by Jian Wushuang. The power was weakened to the extreme, but the thick broadsword continued to deliver its full force. Retreat. Jian Wushuang retreated without any delay, exerting the sword essence of earth at the same time. The best skill of sword essence of earth, thick and strong, was defense. Hua 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 hua. Lin Feng's broadsword domain erupted completely. A series of shadows split endlessly, and it did not stop. Jian Wushuang felt lost as if he had plunged into a huge whirlpool. No matter how he struggled to resist, he could not get rid of it. He only relied on sword essence of earth to resist. Water drop essence. This is water drop essence. Jian Wushuang with a trace of horror. This was the first time he had fought with such a strong concentrated drip realm. He had a new appreciation towards this water drop essence. Water, the greatest power of water, despite it being seemingly weak and feeble, but it had the power to wear through boulders. After all, it is a lack of sword tactics of sword essence of earth. Otherwise, I can fight with Lin Feng. Jian Wushuang sighed. His heart was yearning for formless sword wave. The swordsman is suppressed. He is finally suppressed. He will be defeated. It is normal. Lin Feng, after all, has passed the 5th level. The disciples of Dragon Palace around he saw the scene on the battlefield, and all of them sighed. But at this moment, a sword shadow pierced out in a straight line, at incredible speed. It was the 3rd type of formless swordsmanship, expeditious maneuver. Logically, the 3rd type of formless swordsmanship was not a threat to Lin Feng, but once this sword shadow appeared, boom. It was an extremely forceful sword, its power unexpectedly soaring at this moment, almost directly defeating Lin Feng's offensive. The sharp sword shadow was more than a stroke crossing his shoulder. What? Still in shock, Lin Feng's clothes at his shoulder had been cut away. Jian Wushuang had still won this fight. What's the matter? Lost? How did he lose? This. Everyone around was confused. Lin Feng was so superior, completely suppressing Jian Wushuang, and he should have won immediately, but yet he had suddenly lost. Only Lin Feng, himself, barely knew the reasons for his loss. Strength. It's strength. His power surged suddenly on that sword so that the power of his swordsmanship also rose sharply, tearing through everything directly. Lin Feng thought inwardly, but he was curious that Jian Wushuang was at spiritual sea realm, like him. Why was his power so much stronger than his? He did not know that compared to ordinary martial warrior, the biggest advantage of Jian Wushuang was not his sword essence, nor swordsmanship, but cultivation method. He practiced the heavenly creation skill. He was an inverse cultivator who defied the natural order. Lin Feng's power was at the peak of ordinary spiritual sea realm, and Jian Wushuang, at the peak of his spiritual outbreak, could compare to Gold Core. The spiritual power of Gold Core was far from spiritual sea realm. In the Dragon Palace, although there were numerous disciples, most of them were just as the spiritual sea realm. Only a handful of people could break through to reach Gold Core. All men defeated by Jian Wushuang were just at the spiritual sea realm, and he deliberately controlled his power to fight with them. However, Jian Wushuang had only broken out 30% power while facing Lin Feng. Although it had only been 30%, it was also stronger than the normal spiritual sea realm peak. So he defeated Lin Feng with one sword strike. Lin Feng defeated. Jian Wushuang got 1,000 points again. Who else wants to fight with me? Jian Wushuang looked around, but those disciples of the Dragon Palace were now hesitant. Before, everyone treated Jian Wushuang as a soft persimmon, and wanted to pinch and get points from him. But after these 4 showdowns, especially the fight with Lin Feng, they still did not know why Lin Feng failed in the end. They also realized that Jian Wushuang had hidden his real strength before, so now no one was willing to duel him. Watching this scene, Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes, but immediately laughed. Among disciples of the Dragon Palace, there are innumerable geniuses, so many people. Why is it so difficult to find someone to duel with me? Or are you reluctant to fight with me as I am just a newcomer? Well, among you, as long as you went through the 5th level, you can challenge me. I will not reject anyone. As for the bets, all will be 1,000 points. Do not reject anyone. Disciples of Dragon Palace around he turned to a dark face. This swordsman, what a crazy guy. He even dares to say that he would not reject anyone, clearly looking down on the disciples who broke through the 5th level. I'll fight with you. Most of disciples of the Dragon Palace were infuriated by Jian Wushuang. A disciple who had broken through the 5th level came to fight with Jian Wushuang immediately. And with that final preparation complete, we conclude Chapter 70. Wushuang has successfully consolidated his massive rewards, dealt with the political fallout, and is now exponentially more powerful. The scale of his vision has expanded from the region to the entire continent, maybe even the cosmos. He is ready to face true, ancient threats and supreme masters. The next level of the cultivation world awaits. Join us next time for chapters 71, 72, 73, 74, and 75, as Wushuang begins his journey to the larger, more dangerous continent domain, encountering new leagues of supreme geniuses and uncovering the next major clue regarding his lineage. Thank you for listening to Panda Audiobooks. If you are ready for the grand ascent, Please subscribe and hit that notification bell.